Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. We're going to be talking about the mountain men with two old farts like us, with my co-host Hawkeye Two Feathers, David Null. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you and glad to be seen. And welcome. And as always, we welcome you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the creator. So, and thank you. It's a good time to be here. Got a good story for you tonight. Where the porcupine and the pig, or the pig and the porcupine. But anyway, that's what's coming up. The first pig and porcupine. Does that mean the pig used to have quills? Oh, gosh.
You never know with these tales.
I've never heard of a porcupine stew, by the way. So, I'm wearing my fedora tonight. Brian's birthday was last week, right?
Yep.
And we celebrated, and I couldn't find my fedora. And so I was like, tonight, I was like, that's why I was late. I was looking for my hat. I was like, it's down here somewhere. So I'm wearing the fedora because Brian and I, all those years ago, we started the Men with Hats Club. You know, and that men should wear hats more. Like, you know, why don't they wear a fedora? Why don't they wear a cap? You know, and a ball cap, yeah, all right. But I mean, men don't wear hats anymore. So, but anyway, this is sort of a belated honor to Brian before we get started. You know, so my fedora. My fedora.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Let's go, brother. I just had to throw it in there before we got lost in the show.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I like the fedora. You know, I kind of got one myself going on here. I like it. You know, and that's kind of what the guy in the background's wearing. You know, we always think, oh, these guys are wearing cowboy hats and stuff. Not so much. So why are we talking about the mountain men? Well, we've talked about the Native Americans plenty.
And a hat like this was necessary, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the thing is you know, we're going to talk about the mountain men because they were the bridge between the white man and the native. And they, you know, they at some point in time, when the first white men came, these were the people who made enemies or friends of the white man with the natives. And the Indians would either, you know, try to marry their daughters off with a white man, believe it or not, or they would, you know, take them into the tribe and exchange customs and, you know, trade goods as Lewis and Clark did. And they brought tons of, you know, trinkets along, you know, little tools and, you know, mirrors and medallions and knives and stuff like that to trade with the Indians. So the Indians liked that the white man was coming. But they didn't like the fact that the white man was, you know, killing off all the animals that were their money as well, because the Indian was using, you know, pelts, furs of animals to trade with the white men for their goods, pots, pans, clothes, cloth, mirrors, knives, guns, bullets, you know, all of those things that would be, you know, usable in their culture. But when the white man came along,
not usable, they just wanted it because it was pretty. But go ahead.
Yeah, usable or not, it was pretty. They like to dress themselves up, etc., etc. But the idea with the white man coming was a good exchange, especially these mountain men. They didn't really want their land at that point in time, and there was plenty of animals, so a lot of them would take them in and trade, and they would learn their languages. They would marry their women. They would, and that woman would, as I've been reading, would teach the mountain man a lot of the Indian skills. They would teach them pretty much everything because the woman knew a lot of stuff.
And the man had to learn the language to talk to his wife.
That exactly.
I mean,
that's how
he was like, don't burn the biscuits, and she's like, huh? So
yeah.
What's a biscuit? But anyway.
But that's the thing. Culture, food, language, all of that stuff. And back in those days, a lot of women, they would die from childbirth and things like that. So, and these trappers moved around a lot. And a lot of times they had different women from different tribes, which, they learned multiple languages, such as Kit Carson, Jim Bridger. We're going to go through a lot of those guys.
Let me mention something, just because the idea of land. The first pioneers, those mountain men, do not consider property. Property didn't come in until the rest of the government came in. But most of the mountain men, there's even some today, it's about the freedom to be able to just walk wherever you want to go, as long as you don't, trespass on somebody's garden or something. But fences and property and all that. So they were aligned with the basic principles of the Native Americans anyway. So that brought them even closer. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, we're gonna go through some. Gee, I had this. Hang on.
What'd I do? Jump ahead?
No, I jumped ahead and lost all my show notes here.
Oh, no.
For a second. Here, I found them. Got all the show notes here. We're going to start out with these mountain men, and tonight, with all these people, it's quite the thing. Okay, so. We're going to go, and these guys were legendary. Why were they legendary? A lot of times it was for some of the things they did, as just like discovering passes through mountains so that people could make the journey to the west, or I found out that they either had somebody tell their tale or write their book. Some of these people kept diaries. And that's how they got famous, because they could, believe it or not, they could write. And if you could write, well, then you kept notes. And then when you got back, you wrote books, or you gave articles, or you did a lot of storytelling, and other people wrote those things. The people who didn't, they didn't get to be noted in history as much. I'm sure there was more mountain men out there than the ones we're going to talk about tonight. That's the big thing. We're going to talk about like Jim Bridger. He had storytelling skills and survival skills, and Hugh Glass's incredible crawl after the bear attack. If you watch The Revenant, you know what I'm talking about.
And see, and some of them mountain men were just normies, as one might say, and nothing spectacular happened to them. So and maybe it did, but their story didn't get told, or retold. So, because every time they busted into, I say busted, went into one of the trapper stores, trading stores, first thing the guy would say is, you got any new stories for us? Got any news?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, these guys, they love to be mountain men. That's one thing I learned.
They did. It's in their soul.
It is.
Because I understand when I go out in the swamp. Well, see, I've been to the mountains a lot, and they used to call me Arkansas Jones.
Really?
That was my nickname. Yeah, Arkansas Jones.
Arkansas Jones with the fedora on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I had big. I had a big hawk feather in my hat. Yep.
Wow. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Well, we're going to start out tonight with one of the most famous guys. And this guy is Jim Bridger. Tonight's going to be kind of a skim over of all these guys. And then we're going to continue on with these as I do a deep dive into the mountain men. I had a chance to go to a bookstore and I picked up a book, and I have like 3 or 4 books. And I know we've talked about the mountain men before, but it's really come to my attention that we should be talking more about the mountain men because they interacted, with all these Indians and in the different tribes. And we're going to find out a lot of information that we're not going to get by just researching the natives and the tribes and the Indians and the chiefs, because most of that's all about war. And we don't need to be talking about war all the time. We need to be talking about, who were these people? How did they interact?
Politics.
Yeah.
Learning how to do politics and how to communicate with different peoples, and one of the greatest things that these mountain men did was live.
Yes,
because it's harsh out there, and if they made it 20 years in the the high country or something, holy mackerel! I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing too, is they lived out there and they bridged the gap between the white man and the Indian. That and either good or bad. Okay.
And they tried to avoid the bad.
Yeah. Well, Lucky says, if books were bricks, Bob could make an elaborate fireplace. Well, you know what? That's right, because information is in the books, and it doesn't change once it's in the written word. And books are fascinating. I'm going to tell you all, go get a book. Open the pages, turn off the TV, start reading, people.
Also,
anyway,
that radiation and the light coming off the TV, go back to incandescent bulbs,
Yeah, exactly. It's probably not that great for you anyway.
And also, like you buying the older books, those are the true stories written by, the first authors of our nation, if you will.
Yep.
So they have written these books as a story, but also we're finding out now that the story that they tell of Billy Bob Thornton or something like that, and blah blah blah, and this was his life, and he was in the movie, and but with that, somebody else's will skip over. Well, he was born in a small town, and he, blah, 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 and they skip over that. Well, he was in this movie, and that's Billy Bob Thornton. No, wait. So the deep dives, as we're talking about, is these guys, lived a hard life, but and they were the bridge, absolutely. And I had another point to that was more relevant, but anyway.
Yep. Oh no, I get what you're saying. Well, let's move on. We're burning time here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, but
I'll shut up.
Stories to read, and I'll ask you here in a minute. But anyway, this is Jim Bridger. He was, Jim Bridger lived a long time. He got to see the country from, the beginning to till cars were on the road pretty much. He lived. He was born in 1804 and he died in 1881. He was pretty active in the years between 1822 and 1868. And then he got kind of old. He lived at 77 years. His biggest things he was known for was founding of Fort Bridger in Wyoming, being among the first non-indigenous people to see the geysers of Yellowstone and the Great Salt Lake.
Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine it? Wow, you're out there riding and all of a sudden you come across this. I don't, did he think it was the ocean and say, my gosh, it's full of salt water and it's huge. Holy cow. Did he even know it was a lake? I asked myself that. I'm sure eventually he figured it out, but just riding up to it, I would imagine you'd think, holy cow.
What is all this white stuff, you know?
Yeah, why
I mean,
is the
'cause it's
water
dried
salty?
on, I have not been there, but it's dried on the ground and around the edges of the lake. And the other thing too is, what was the lake? What did the lake look like back then as opposed to now?
It was
More
much
drained? Was the lake higher? Was it, you know what I mean? So, but he
bigger.
rode up to the lake, that's for sure, and said, "Oh man."
Yeah, well, these guys were the surveyors. They told the tales, wrote the books, made the maps. For people following after him, for the settlers. He was this guy, Jim Bridger. He was a master of survival and storytelling, and I think that's probably why he got a little bit famous, because he could tell his story and people would sit around and listen to what he had to say. A good speaker. He served as a guide for the U.S. Army and was known for his deep knowledge of the Western territories and Native American languages. He was one of the first, trappers out there. He went up and down the Rockies. He knew everything. It was like his big backyard. Lived to a ripe old age. I guess in the end, he kind of went blind. He just kept saying, I wish I would have stayed. I wish I would have kept going. But I think he died over in Missouri, went back home to his relatives. But by that time, he was old and frail. He was 77. So, but here's the amazing thing. As we look at these pictures, this is a real picture of him. He was born in that age where there was paintings of you to pictures of you. And it's amazing that we could capture the image of one of the guys who found trails, settled America, and we have a picture of him. Can you imagine that? I mean, that just blows my mind sometimes, that we can have a picture of a guy who was one of the first people to cross America.
And wore a fedora.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He was the first. He was one of the first.
I'm wearing my hat in honor of him too.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Next, we have this guy, Kit Carson. He was born in 1809. Died in 1868. He was out there in the West between the years of 1826 and 1868, right up to the end. He only lived 58 years, but he left a long and a colorful legacy. He was known for serving as a guide for John C. Fremont's expeditions. His role in the U.S. Army during the Mexican-American War and the American Indian Wars. And then, as we've talked about Kit Carson before, he was known for gathering up the Navajo and putting them on reservations, and then becoming a spokesperson for them so that they could have their own reservation. He felt that the government was doing them unjust service by, giving them crapping conditions and bad place to live. So
he knew they were being cheated.
Yes, he did. He had a wild and colorful life. He went to Washington many a time to speak on behalf of the natives and the settlers, both. Carson was a legendary frontiersman from those exploits. He was publicized, and they wrote books about him. Those 10-cent or 5-cent dime novels. Even if they weren't real. Some of them, they were exaggerated. But hey, that's how it always goes. Next, we have a quite the guy. He was John Coulter. Now, John Coulter didn't live that long, but he was known. He only lived. He was born in 1803. I think he knew Louis Wetzel, He was from Virginia or wherever it was there, Pennsylvania, Virginia area. And but as a young man, he signed up for the Lewis and Clark expedition, and he was chosen. He was quite the scrapper, but he made it out there and really loved the outdoors. Man, he made it all the way to the coast, and on the way back, he decided, hey, I don't want to go back to civilization. I'm done. I'm going back out west and do some more trapping and go back to the mountains. He really wanted to be a mountain guy, a mountain man. You know what I'm saying? He didn't want to go back to society, even though he was, he could have went back, I guess. Anyhow, let's move on with this. He was known for the Lewis. He was known for he discovered the region of the Yellowstone National Park. Believe it or not, that area. He told about the geysers and the bubbling ground, and nobody would believe him, but. Eventually, people went out there and said, "Oh my gosh, he was right. There's such a thing." He couldn't really write stories about himself, but his adventures were legendary, and people talked about his survival skills and the adventures that he did have. And one of the most famous ones, besides the Lewis and Clark expedition, was when he was floating down the river with his buddy, and they were doing some trapping in the Blackfoot Indian region. And the Blackfoots showed up, and him and his buddy, and they were both in canoes, and the Blackfoot said, "Hey, come on over to the shore." And there was so many of them, he decided that they couldn't outrun them. So they both pulled up on the shore. The Blackfoot took everything they had, including his clothes. His friend, who was in the other canoe, decided that he wasn't going to give up his stuff, and so they killed him. And that wasn't so good. Well, anyway, Coulter, they didn't know what to do with him, but that makes he was a tall guy, had long legs, and they decided to let him run naked, and they would chase him. So they let him go, and they said, "Run, run!" And he didn't know what to think. He thought, well, they're going to have me run, and then just going to shoot me with arrows. But instead, the young warriors, they got ready, and they started to chase him, and he ran for his life. He ran so hard that he had a nosebleed. He ran and ran and ran. Now he's running naked, and eventually he outrun all the Indians. I'm summing this up really quick, but he outran all but one. Then he turned on that Indian and fought with him and killed the Indian, took his blanket, and that's all he had. He took the Indian's blanket that he had, and ran. And he ran, I forget what it was, 200 miles to the fort where they found him, and he was battered, beaten, freezing, and hungry, I'm sure, naked, and half alive. But John Coulter, was quite the mountain man at that point. Well, he saddled up again, went back out west back into the mountains after that incident to go trapping again. And again, he was in an Indian battle. And his story goes that he said, "Oh, God, if you let me get out of here, I'm getting out of the mountains and going back to civilization." And he survived, went back to civilization. Eventually, soon after that, I forget what he was doing, but he died a pitiful death of jaundice. He got jaundice and died at the ripe old age of 38. I think that guy could have probably
turned yellow.
Yeah, he could have been something bigger, but he was we're going to study him too. All these guys I'm talking about, we're going to really dig deep into these. Okay, we have this guy.
Is just a preview.
This is a preview. We're just kind of linking the dots together tonight.
It's
because
all right. I'm just,
oh yeah. Now we have this guy here. This is Hugh Glass. Hugh Glass was born in 1783. He had a very colorful life, but he decided to go to the mountains, become a mountain man. He went out to the mountains in the early 1800s, became a trapper, and became famous fighting Indians, trapping, and he's best known for that bear attack. As if you ever watched The Revenant, they made that movie about him, and he died off in an Indian battle. Even though he survived all that grizzly bear stuff and everything, he did die off in an Indian battle at about the age of 50. So he lived to about 1833. Never went back to civilization. So anyway, his big famous thing is surviving that, and then traveling after being buried. Because he thought he was dead, he traveled 200 miles to safety.
Wait, what? They thought he was dead and buried him?
They thought he was dead and buried him and said, well, we're not staying here for this dead man, But he survived, and he, all by himself, he went through Indian territory and made it back to civilization. And now they buried him out here in South Dakota. They put up this monument. Now, here's for the real treat. The real treat is, let's see, my trip to South Dakota. And I went out there. So to prove it, here's my video. And I'm going to play that until we get to the Revenant part. But anyway, I went out to South Dakota. It's located in Lemon, South Dakota. I think I got music on this, so I'm not going to play the music on this for you guys. Anyway, this is a petrified forest in Lemon, South Dakota. If you ever go there, it's a petrified wood park. And there I am, me and the dog. It's a pretty cool place, but it's on your way to go see Hugh Glass, his monument, and where they put him in the ground, and then he crawled out of the ground and made it back to civilization. And I've got a lot of this park on here, so we're gonna fast forward to it. Oh yeah, so there you go. A lot of dinosaur bones. If you ever get to that park, it's really cool. So check it out, everyone. It's a lot of fun. We're going to get back there. It's good to take a trip in an old car. So now, oh, here we go. Hugh Glass, adventurer. Now this, in the movie, there's trees everywhere. In real life, it's a barren plain. And there I am. See, I made it to the monument. And until the 50s, you could actually see the dugout down here somewhere where they had buried him. But there was a flood and it covered it up. So washed it away. But he didn't have much to live on.
Yeah, right. So in the movies, they make it a little more pleasant sometimes for shooting scenes and etc. But if you look at those pictures, when you get out there, it's vast and they ain't nothing.
No.
I'm used to trees, and when I was out there, I was like, I don't think I could stand it. There are no trees.
That's right. There's no trees. You're out there in the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere, and you're thinking, what the heck? This is where he was? This doesn't look anything like the movie. And that's my friend Aaron. And there I am standing in front of the monument. Like I said, it was fun to go. It's a good place. I mean, it's one of those things. It's really not one of those thrilling places to go. It's just barren and empty with a monument there.
it's the story if you know it. And like for me, what did it feel like back then? You know,
Yeah.
I'm always going, you know, not trying to reflect on the past, but you know, in a way, I I'm still a pioneer. I think I've
Yep.
just been reborn, you know, here. But I guess what? I'm still, you know, I'm still homesteading this place I'm on after 40 years. So I'm still pioneering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some
Exactly.
some of us just have this pioneer in us,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, we got it. Can't get it out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no, he did not die. Like he says, they need to pull up his rocks, the rocks up there. He did not die here. This is where he crawled out of the grave and then he made it back to the fort. He crawled the 200 miles to safety to the fort in Iowa or somewhere there, Fort Iowa, I think it was. Um, and that's why he's got famous. He died in a battle with the Arikara, a number of years later, but he did live to about 50 years old. So there you go. Let's move on. Now we got this guy, Jedediah Smith. Now, Jedediah Smith was born in 1799 and he lived to 1831. Not a very long life, about 32 years. About 1822, he decided to become a mountain man, though. And he's known for being the first American to enter California from the east and to cross the Sierra Nevada. He crossed the mountains and found the pass through there to California, making the trip through. Smith he had extensive travels and detailed maps. So this is what made him famous because he made the maps, which were valuable to the explorers in the future. And without him, it took years to find those passes and make it through. And when he found the pass, he said, "Hey, let's go this way." And it's probably a highway now.
Right, it's probably Interstate 40. But can I mention something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I love maps, and I've worked with that as a draftsman and so forth, and as an engineer, you know. But I've been thinking of like, how can those guys, and their maps were accurate. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. And it's like they had Google Earth. So I'm wondering, you know, if they had to have been able to think of what it looked like from the top.
yeah,
What,
I
you
know.
know, because if you look at it just from the side, it's just a bunch of jagged rocks. So they had to imagine what it looked like from the top so that
Yep.
they could draw the map. Now that is one hell of some imagination to be able to convert what you see here from a thing that, you know, that you're looking on the map from the top down. So
Did
anyway,
I'm
them
sure
guys
you
were special,
Yeah,
really
well, exactly.
special.
Did you ever try to draw a map for somebody to find? Remember back in the days before Google and GPS and all that stuff? I remember trying to draw maps on a piece of paper for somebody, and just a road map. Like, you go down Highway 10, you take a left, then you go about 3 miles, and then you take the curve in the road instead of going straight, and then you go 2 miles down that way and you turn right, and you go 2 blocks down and there's the house. But when you're drawing that, it sure takes up a lot more paper, and everything is not sized right. Your brain is thinking, well, that Highway 10, that's a long route, and then they got to make that turn and da. And it's hard to draw a map even if you
Yep.
know the roads.
Yep, that's sort of what I'm talking about. And you know, I've always been blessed with it, thinking about it and then being able to scale it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, if I draw Interstate 10 too big, then this is going to have to be too big. Well, let me shrink it. So, but a lot of people don't have that, and I have been very blessed over the years to be able to. Not as good as these guys.
Yeah.
These guys were, they were great, I'm telling you, they were great. They should have been paid millions of dollars for what they did. Honest to God.
They should have. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, they were drawing, gaps in the river, mountains, and passes, and not like, and then telling people, yeah, you go about 15 miles this way and take a left at that elm tree, and then there's a little ravine. You go up that ravine, and then there's a mountaintop and a plateau, and you go over the plateau, and you got to come down the cliff on the other side. No. I mean, this stuff was really detailed. If you ever see those maps, it's amazing.
I've seen some of the old maps, and it's just amazing. And the detail, there's a house here. And now there wasn't too much stuff to write down that was there. But one of the other things, too, is that they marked the fords in the streams. Mm-hmm. They marked the shallow spots, because they knew that people were going to be coming with wagons. And that picture right there shows that they had wagons. So they had to be able, they had to be able to find decent crossings. So anywhere that they could take those wagons, that was a good road.
Yes, wagons and water holes.
Right, exactly.
Were really important things to find. Here's a pond, go that way. So anyway, we're gonna move on to the next guy. Then.
And good water pond and good water holes that weren't poisoned, because some of them were.
Yes, absolutely. But even as good as he was, he only lived to 32. It makes you think like, oh man, this guy got famous, and yet he was only 32 years old. He's just a young buck.
Yeah.
Now
what killed him?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
We'll figure it out. We got this guy. This is James Beckworth. As you can see, somebody wrote a life and adventures of him. He was a black man, believe it or not. There were mountaineers, adventurers that were black men. Now, he was born in 1798. He lived to 1866. And so we have pictures of him. Can you imagine being born in the 1700s, and actually we can look at this man and say, oh my God, he was born in the 1700s, and we have pictures of him.
And a book.
And a book. And, anyway, he lived to 68 years old. He's known for discovering Beckworth Pass. He was also serving as a war chief of the Crow Nation. Believe it or not, his legacy, he has an autobiography, which provides a unique perspective of frontier life and his interactions with the native tribes. Okay. Well, an autobiography is one that you've written yourself or dictated yourself.
Right.
So when and I want to get this book, because if he's writing this down, I mean, he's probably going to exaggerate a little bit, but you're going to get a lot of tidbits. Like I said, these guys that are telling their stories, the mountain men, are going to be talking about all those bridging the gaps between the natives and the white man. The things you're not going to find in some history book about how, the interactions between the natives themselves happened, or, what so-and-so's wife did to the chief, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. And something else too. Maybe he was, but, doesn't look, I don't think that, James was, born in an uptown family, and so he must have escaped as a slave, probably. And so his story to where he got to where he could write a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that in itself is an adventure and a story, in my humble opinion. Well, so it'd be interesting just to find that out. Plus the adventures that he went on. Yeah. You need to remind me, because I'd like to. If that book's still in print or something, it'd be nice to get that. I'd like to have it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that's the thing is, he probably became a free man of some sort, decided that he's going to go out west and make money trapping and whatever. And then became part of an Indian tribe. So, and
But
who knows?
how did he sneak away in the early 1800s? Because he had to have been born a slave.
He had
Chances
to.
are.
Yeah, I don't know. Did his master free him? Did his, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. I mean, like I
That's what
said,
I mean. It's very
we're
interesting.
we're gonna take a look at some of these. Like I said, we're gonna take a look at some of these guys and really start investigating, because I think they have an interesting story to tell. Even though they're not native, they're gonna have the inside, the skinny, whatever you want to call it, on the natives, right?
And and these days, not to toot our own horn in that we really like to dive down into what it was like back then, and let us not forget how we got here and our pioneer heritage and so forth. That's important, you
It is.
know. And so but to deep dive, especially on a black man who pioneer, who became famous and wrote a book, that needs telling.
Yeah, and again, he was born in the 1700s, and yet we have a picture of him. How crazy is that? I mean, but anyway, okay, we got to move on to the next guy. This is Thomas Fitzpatrick. No picture that probably. He was born in 1799, died in 1854. Started out trapping with the Rocky. He helped co-found the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, serving as an Indian agent. There was no picture that I could find of a photo, so he must have not had his legacy. He was known he was named Broken Hand. Fitzpatrick, he played a significant role in negotiating treaties between the U.S. government and the native tribes. And of course, again, how did these guys get so famous? People wrote books about them. Somewhere along the line, people, he must have kept a journal. He must have been able to read and write, tell stories, something. People wrote books because they had the information.
Okay, so what was his title? Indian agent? What?
Yeah, he was his nickname Broken Hand, and as you can see from the book, he was they call him the life story of Thomas Fitzpatrick, chief of the Mountain Men. He was the co-founder of the Rocky Mountain Fur Company.
Okay, so he probably, and especially with a name like Fitzpatrick, probably had one of them fur trading stores as an Indian agent. He probably had a little shack or a store, and that's where he did all his business. So think about that. So when they say, I'm sorry, I just forgot the word again. Indian agent. That's what they mean for back then. He had a business, fur trader. Yep. He opened it up. He ran the store, and other people went out and got the pelts and brought them to him, and he negotiated the prices and then would sell them off to whomever. So, okay.
Broken Hand. Yeah, so there's books out there about these guys. Like I said, I'm going to get some of these. I didn't even know existed. Greatest of the Mountain Men. See, this is where the dime novels come to question and saying, somebody found his story, wrote the dime novel, and somebody was, people were looking at going, Broken Hand Fitzpatrick, he's the greatest of the Mountain Men. Oh my gosh, I gotta read that. And now he's famous. Leading settlers and fighting Indians and all that good stuff.
And see, that because they didn't have any kind of radio or TV or any kind of entertainment, I mean, back then to be able to read, well, I want to say graphic novel, but it was graphic to the people reading it. Oh, the people were slaughtered by the Indians, and that, they took their scalps and they, took their ears or whatever. That was terrible but when they wrote that in them dime novels, it was like, oh my God, horrific. But they couldn't wait till the next one came out.
That's right. Lucky
It was
says
thrilling.
Lucky says that Beckworth free was he was freed by his enslaver who was his father. Now, how
Whoa.
interesting is that?
Oh,
And
because maybe he was poking in the hen pen.
yeah, and Broken Hand was because he had a gun accident with his left hand. Yep. Like I said, we're going to dig into all of those guys to find out what was going on. This is kind of like a teaser, everyone. This is just kind of a teaser. But this is kind of what these guys were known for, you know. And now we got this guy here. He was also born in 1799, lived to 1845. He went out west in 1823. He died at the age of 46. He's known, William Sublette, known for leading expeditions for the Rocky Mountain Fur Company and establishing Fort Laramie.
Oh.
Sublette's contributions were for expanding the fur trade and establishing key trading posts. So he's out there establishing trading posts. And oops, wrong guy. And there wasn't many pictures on this guy. You know, but anyway, now we got the next guy.
He was setting up the new McDonald's.
That's right. This guy here, Joseph Meek, from 1810 to 1875. He went out west in 1830. He lived to be 65 years old. He's known for being a trapper, a lawman, a politician in the Oregon Territory.
Wow.
What's he known for about doing things is Meek's transition from a mountain man to a political figure. It sounds like these movie stars, you know, they're in the movies and the next thing you know, they're running for president. He illustrates the evolving roles of these frontiersmen, and that's what it was. The frontiersmen were trappers, then they went out there and led settlers, then they had to settle down and they became the lawmakers, either lawmen or politicians, one or the other. And here he is again.
And the thing is they knew their territory.
Yeah.
So when they talk to people, it's highly likely as a pioneer and a trapper himself, he met some of these people who lived up in the hills. And then later on, when they say, "Oh, you mean that guy? He's running for office? I'll vote for him." You know.
Well, yeah, exactly. He took us through the pass and helped me settle my land or whatever. Yeah.
And there's something about, I want to say, I don't know where I heard it, but there's like a Meek's Pass or something that he found out there to help folks get through. Because if you've ever been out there along the spine of the Rocky Mountains, golly, to go out there on horseback and look around for a break in the mountains.
Yeah, especially I've been out there and you're just riding and you gotta think, I think back and it's like I was on trails. I mean, I showed you videos a few weeks ago about how, you know, I was out there riding. I was on a trail that was, you know, made, and I can't imagine just riding and trying to pick your own trail, because, you know, you could be going along and all of a sudden hit a cliff and go, well, I don't know how I'm going to get down that. I got to turn around and go back.
Yeah. And also, you know, if they'd never been to an area before, to know how the heck to get back.
Well, exactly.
I mean, to have it's how they were able to look at the land. And they could see it like, well, you know, you got to go down to this cliff. Well, it's 6 miles away. But, you know, they know when you get to the cliff and then something else. Well, I've sort of learned that myself on the river. And so you get to a certain bend in the river and then there's this. And then you go down a little ways and then it opens up. And then you go down a little ways and it's, you know, it narrows down. So you learn these things along the way. But the fact that they, you know, it took me a while to learn the river in like succession.
Yeah.
And but so they had to learn it on the fly. There weren't any maps or anything like that. So to me, that's just another level of awareness. And wow, these guys
Yeah.
were good.
They were. Pa Joe says we lived close to the Jim Beckworth cabin on the Rocky Point Road a few years ago, and there's a museum there also. So good for you, Pa Joe. That would be cool, especially if you
Yep.
had some pictures of the museum or the trail or something. Send me some of that. Anyway, thank you for letting me know. Very
Especially
cool.
when you get into him more. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna check up. Like this guy here is Meeks. He lived a long time, and 65, and up to 1875. I mean, the West was settled then. It was just before Custer's last stand. The Indians were almost gone, and he tamed the land. And now we have a picture. We have an actual photo of this guy who settled the West. It's amazing. I just keep saying amazing. I'm sorry, but it is. It is.
It's astounding.
It is. I mean, it just blows my mind. Now we have this guy.
Kit Carson.
This is Jim Baker.
Oh,
Jim Baker was born in 1818, and he lived a long life. 1898. He almost made it to the 1900s here. I mean, can you imagine the interesting things he's seen come and go?
He's seen electricity if he was in the big city.
Yeah.
And he saw automobiles and sure enough, trains, So, yep.
Lucky, healthy, lived a long time. And you can see by his rugged face, his complexion. Man, now this is a true, this is the image I get for like a mountain man, Anyway, he lived to 80 years old. He went out west in 1838. And he's known for serving as a scout, an interpreter, and a trapper, participating in various military campaigns. I could just see him out on one of those horses, riding as a scout for Custard or, some of those guys, Hey, Kit Carson, I'll go out and scout for you, kind of deal. Baker's long life and diverse roles amplified the adaptability and the resilience of mountain men. And they were, they guided people. They went and trapped. They knew them, like you said, they made the maps. And this was one of those guys. How amazing.
And here's something about the scouts. So people say, well, big deal, a scout. Well, but they were getting so many green guys from the East. And they'd get a platoon of guys or however, they'd get 20 new guys or whatever. And not that 20 is a platoon, but I'm just saying. So they get they get some new folks in who have never been out west. They may have made it to Oklahoma, but now they're way out west and things are a lot different in them Rocky Mountains. And so it's like they're out of their element, right? They're in a desert. There's no trees. There's barely any grass, and the grass that's there, they don't know what kind it is. And there are cactuses, and and rattlesnakes, So, but all of these things, they needed somebody to take them out just 5 miles from the fort, or they'd get lost.
Yeah.
So scouts were really important, not just on long treks or to go hunt the Indians, just to go out and scout around. They'd get lost. So these scouts were real important because they knew the neighborhood.
Well, they did. And Elderberry says the government needed those guys and probably paid them for the service. And they did. They paid.
And they did.
Yeah.
And some of those guys were like, no, I ain't going out until you pay me,
Yeah. Well, that and the fact that they weren't military, a lot of them. They rode with the military. They scouted for the military, but they necessarily didn't have to like go into battle. and fight with the military. They just scouted. Hey, I see Indians over yonder. Bridger did that a lot of times. He would scout, tell them what to do, and then this is what I think you should do. And then the general says, nope, we're going to do this. And he says, well, I'm not having no part of it. And,
Yep.
you had to listen to your scouts. Those were your eyes and ears, and your battles were fought basically with the information, the intel that your scouts were going to give you.
And that's just it. It was the intel. So, guys like Custer is like, the being a little arrogant. No, I'm going to do it like this. And the scouts going, maybe not,
Yeah.
But so what these guys that also made it so important was that especially the lay of the land, and many times they had spoken with some of these Indian leaders, and so that they kind of sort of knew what their attitude was. You know a little bit about the enemy, and you go, listen, you don't want to go over there. That's Chief such and such. He's battle hardened, and he'll get you in a heartbeat. I wouldn't go over there and tussle with him. You only got 15 guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
stuff like that. But see, then the guys from the East wanted to make a name for themselves after the Civil War. And so the only way they could make themselves more popular and raise in rank and everything was to do something great with the Indians. So,
Well,
they went out there and tried to, many of them, although they might not write it down, many of those guys were, bust out their chest and be boastful. I'm going out and fight them damn Indians. The only good Indians are dead Indian.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too, is a lot of them died, because like I was reading today, and they were talking about this one guy, and he was out there, William Henry Vandenberg, and I don't have him up here, but I'm reading his book, and he was talking about how 7 of the newbies, the greenhorns, were heading back with some of their furs and stuff, and they got attacked by the Indians, and they all got killed. And I'm thinking, those people were, their lives ended right there. They didn't get to become great mountain men. They started out, and the Indians killed them off, and
that's sad.
Yeah, well, just like John Coulter, he was with his buddy, and they were, out there trapping, and John Coulter just did the right things, and the Indians didn't kill him. I mean, he could run fast, and he was just lucky and strong and able. And his buddy said, "You're not taking my canoe." He's sitting in his, "You're not taking my stuff. You're not taking my canoe." And they went, "Yes, we are." And I forget the story, but he shot and killed one. And then they just littered him with arrows. I mean, he was a pincushion after that. And then they cut him up in little pieces, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, you got 100 Indians standing there, and you're telling them, no, I'm not going to give you all my stuff. Like Coulter, that's what Coulter did. He's like, okay, you can just take whatever you want.
Let me drop my drawers right here.
Yeah, you want to take my clothes? Here, take them. But I'm, as long as you just let me live a little longer. So, yeah, there's a lot of that.
So he wasn't a swimmer, with his long legs. He outswam the Indians. That would have been cool too. But anyway, never mind. Keep going.
Well, no, when he took off and the Indians were hunting him down, he was a swimmer. He was running, right? Now, remember, he was trapping beavers and stuff. The Indians were chasing. He outran them Indians, but, he couldn't run forever. He did take breaks. And when he took a break one time, remember, he's naked there. He doesn't have anywhere to go or anywhere to hide. And you've seen the territory out there. He jumps in the water, swims out to a beaver, one of those beaver houses, where the beavers.
Beaver hut, yep.
Yeah, beaver hut. And he crawls up into the beaver hut, to, get away from the Indians. And they looked around for him, and he could see him out there through the twigs and the branches, and they didn't see him, and they left, and he stayed there till dark. And when dark came, he crawled out of there, swam out into the cold, freezing water, because that river, creek, or stream is probably really cold. And then
a snow river,
yeah, and then of course he takes off running again, because now he has no clothes and he's freezing. I mean, geez, the strength of these people, and the durability. I don't even know how to explain.
It's the will to survive.
Yeah, the will to survive.
Because I've been in situations where it's like, nope, I guess this is where I'm just going to go. I'm going to quit here. No, you ain't. And you might lay there for an hour, and then all of a sudden you come back and go, time to go. But then some people just they just don't have it. I can't explain it. It's just in you.
Exactly. Well, just to wrap this up, these trappers and explorers, and they were part of the American expansion. They were intermediaries between the Native American tribes and the U.S. government. You always got to get the government in there. Their legacies are complex, and we're going to study them all. They had spirit and adventure, and a crazy history full of chaos. For the Western expansion. Without them, I don't think we'd be here today in this. I'm sure somebody would have went, but it might have took a lot longer time.
That's sort of my follow-up question here, in a way, is that would there have been somebody crazy enough, other than if these guys weren't there? Would somebody else have been crazy enough to find a pass through and all that kind of stuff? How much longer would it have taken if they hadn't been crazy enough to go looking? You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff, and I know most of the people who live in the East are acquainted with the Appalachians. I've traveled all over the Appalachians up to Virginia. And then when I went out west, I was astounded. That's a mountain. If you remember that this is a knife, that's a mountain. And when you go up to 10, 11,000 feet, you go, this is a mountain. And so these guys were on horseback and with knowing nothing, and like, well, let's go up this way and see what's up here. Well, let me go back over here, And so this was trial and error on horseback. And like I said, the mountains they're humongous.
Well,
not easy to get around on,
Well, and not only that, but you're throwing in hostile Indians who want to kill you and scalp you. And then to toss in not only that too, but if you don't see an Indian, you might see a bear who wants to eat you. And there's grizzly bears out there that'll just, oh, look, food. Wolves.
And there were a lot of
mountain lions.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. They had some ferocious mountain lions. And when we say lion, they weren't little kitty cats. They were showing up lions. And so, folks would get attacked. I mean, they'd be sleeping around the campfire and get drug off,
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then, of course, like John Price says, don't overlook the Mexicans and the Comancheros, like
and that too,
the Spanish had come and the Mexicans were there. They were settling the land long before the Americans were. But the thing is, you're battling nature too. Like I was saying, you're talking about the mountain lions. Well, today we have mountain lions, and they're far and few between. Back in those days, there was a lot more of them.
They was everywhere, all up and down the mountain range, or just they were all over the place.
Yeah, Exactly. They were all over. And the bears, the bear would come out of nowhere and attack you. I mean, even with the Lewis and Clark adventures, that there was lots of bears, and I forget how many times they had to shoot a bear before it actually die. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, yeah. And they were talking about how big these bears were. And you know why the bears were so big is because there was nobody out there to kill off these bears. They just grew and grew and grew, and as nature intended, and got as old as they could possibly get. They had all the food they could possibly eat. Uh, you know,
And
Mountain
free
lions.
range,
Yes,
it's the range of food,
yes.
but it's the food itself too. But no, but some of those bears are different. It's, the black bear here on the East Coast ain't the same as the black bear on the West Coast. And of
Oh,
course,
I,
they got
I
grizzly bears, which they just don't have over here. So there were all these things they were encountering. It's like different kinds of rattlesnakes, and how many rattlesnakes there were. They'd be climbing up the mountain looking for something and put their hand on a ledge and get bit. You know,
Yep.
and there ain't nobody, period.
Well,
So
and that's the thing. You fall, break your leg, you better fix it yourself. A lot of times these guys travel in parties of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or even 50, but but still, you have not just a couple, but you have hundreds of Indians, that could come and attack you. A whole war party. I've been reading about this stuff lately, and it's like whole war parties show up, 100 Indians, and you're looking around thinking, why? This is kind of crazy. There are 100 of them, and there's only like 10 of us. Like I said, the greenhorns, they were heading back with their furs, and the Indians came, and there was no more greenhorns. They killed them all. And
wipe
I'm
them out.
thinking, wiped them out. Exactly. It's like, oh my goodness, and what do? You're being attacked by 100 Indians, and you only have a black powder gun. They surprise you in the middle of the night. You're done for. You're done.
And if you're a greenhorn, then you've never fought an Indian,
Pretty much.
And so when you're if you haven't gotten shot by 10 arrows, you're fighting for your life, hand-to-hand combat, and they're going to overpower you.
Well, and the thing is most of these Indians, they've been trained since they were children to be warriors.
Right. They practiced stabbing each other when they was children, I mean, literally,
Yeah.
that's what they did. That was their playtime.
That's right.
Now,
Well,
also one other thing about the scouts. We were talking about when they didn't necessarily fight with the military, and there were some times where some of the scouts would go, there they are, go get them, and they'd point down the hill, and they'd sit up on the hill and watch the battle. And sometimes they were called cowards, and they were like, listen, I don't have a dog in this fight, as they used to say. And I don't have a dog in this fight. So why should I go down there? Besides that, they owe me $10 back at the fort. If I get back there, I get that other $10. So it's like, no. So, but to that point, it was self-preservation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, they was like, no, I think that's stupid. I think I'll stay up here out of the way. But so why did some of these guys make it through as long as they did, with taking scouts out and all the other guys getting killed? Why did they make it?
Some were lucky.
Well, and smart. Sometimes they were sitting up on the hill.
Yeah.
Is my point.
Yes. I was just reading the one today where they were out trapping, and a big group of warriors were heading their way, and they had two Indian scouts with them. And the one Indian scout, he says, you guys hurry along, and I'll take them all on. And so he gets on top of the hill, and he starts singing his death song, and he's going to attack them all, right? And the group of Indians gets closer and closer and closer. And finally, they're watching this guy, and he just he's on his horse and he just charges down the mountain or hill or whatever it was at this group of warriors. And all of a sudden, he went from singing his death song to singing or yelling out some words I can't remember. And it turns out that they were his people and they were friendly Indians to him and the group. And so, he didn't get to die that day. But I did thought that was crazy. He was going to sacrifice his life so everybody else could get away. And he's just up there. He's going to attack them all and singing his death song. And I'm thinking, wow, the bravery of people back in the day. Okay, guys, you go along. I'm going to get killed for you. I'm going to go out there and charge them all, buy you a little bit of time. That's stuff movies are made out of.
It's like, hey, Uncle Joe, what you doing, man? That's a nice headdress you got on.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but that's basically what happened,
We're going to get into some of them stories next week. And like I said, it's going to be great. So now we got your story tonight, the first pig and porcupine.
Did I say pig earlier?
Yeah. The first pig and porcupine. Well, the show is all yours and ready to go.
All right, give me a second. Let me drink some of my coffee here.
Yeah.
And a little bit of just personal in that porcupine. I found out probably 50 years ago that the Null crest, the Null family crest, is a porcupine. So porcupine stories are always, special to me. And I used to have a porcupine puppet when I traveled around and I did a story about porcupine. So it's cool that I get to read this story for you. I have not read this, so I'm reading it cold. So I don't know what it's about either, except it's about a pig and a porcupine. So let me swallow this and we'll get started. And thank you all for being here. If you've been able to put up with me and Robert, we love you. I'm still reading from the book Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus McMillan, 1922. The story tonight, The First Pig and Porcupine. A man and his wife lived once long ago in the Canadian forest. They lived far away from other people and they found it very lonely. They were very poor, for game was not plentiful, yet they were always happy and contented. They had only one child, a boy, whom they loved well. The boy grew up to be very strong and clever, but he was often lonely without any companions but his parents, because he was kind to them and they looked upon him as a comrade. At last, he grew tired of his lonely life. He longed for adventure. So one day, he said to his parents, "I'm going far away to see other men and women and to do great deeds." His parents did not want to let him go at first, for they would be very lonely without him. But they knew that he could never become great where he was, and they consented to let him go. So the next morning, he set out on his journey. He traveled all day. At night, he slept on the ground under the stars. In the morning, Rabbit came to where he lay and woke him up. Rabbit said, "Hello, friend. Where are you going?" "I'm going to find people," said the boy. "That is what I want to do too," said Rabbit. "We shall go together." So they went on together. They traveled a long distance through the forest. They crossed many streams and climbed many hills. At last they heard voices through the trees, and soon they saw not far in front of them an Indian village. Rabbit hid among the trees, but the boy went forward alone to see the people. The people were all kind to him and gave him food and asked him to stay with them. But they were all very sad, and many of them were weeping. The chief has a very beautiful daughter, and word has come to us that tomorrow a great giant is coming to eat her up. It will be useless to send her away, for the giant will follow her. He's a terrible monster and cannot be killed. And then they continued to weep and lament. The boy went out to the woods and told Rabbit what he had heard. He said, "We had better go on our way so that they may be far off when the giant comes." But Rabbit said, "No, go back to the people and tell them you can save the chief's daughter. Have no fear. When night comes, bring the girl to me, and I will save her." So the boy went back to the people and told them not to fear, for he would save the girl from the giant. They laughed at him at first, for everyone who had attempted to stop a giant had been killed. But when they saw that the boy was quite sure of his power, they listened to him. Then they went to the chief and told him what the stranger had said. Then the chief sent for him and said, "If you can save my daughter from the giant, she shall be yours." When evening came, the boy brought the girl to where the rabbit was waiting. Rabbit had a little carriage ready, drawn by 2 squirrels. When he spoke to the squirrels, they grew until they were as large as dogs. They all got into the carriage, the boy and the girl and the rabbit, and away they went with the squirrels. It was a clear summer night and the moon was full. The road was hard and they ran along rapidly over the road among the trees, and soon they reached a village far away. They came to a tent on the bank of a stream. The boy went in and found only an old woman. She said, "Death is not far away from you. The giant is close on your heels." Then she wept. She told them to go to the river, for her husband was there. So they went to the river. Rabbit and his squirrel stayed behind to see what the giant would do. The boy and the girl found an old man fishing from the bank. He said, "Death is not far away from you, for the giant is close on your tracks, but I will help you." So they stepped to his back. They feared at first that they would fall off, but at once he grew as large as a big canoe, and he swam with them across the river. When they landed on the other side, they turned to look at him, and they saw then that he was Old Sea Duck, the boy's friend. He pointed to a high mountain. "Go to the mountain," he said, "and there you will find Rabbit." Then he swam away. The boy and the girl went towards the mountain, but they heard the giant roaring behind them and splashing in the stream as he crossed. When they reached the foot of the mountains, he was almost upon them. At the foot of the mountain, Rabbit was waiting for them. The side of the mountain was very steep. It was almost perpendicular. Rabbit took a long pole and held it up. "Climb this," he said, and the boy and the girl climbed. The pole lengthened until they stepped from it to the top of the mountain. Rabbit climbed up after them with his squirrels. The giant saw them all from the foot of the mountain and climbed up the pole after them. But when he was near the top, the boy pushed the pole out and it fell backwards, taking the giant with it. The giant was killed by the fall. Then the boy and the girl and Rabbit got into the squirrel carriage. They went quickly down the other side of the mountain and over the moonlit road until they came to the girl's native village. When they reached the border of the village, Rabbit said, "Now, old friend, goodbye. I must go away. But if ever again you are in trouble, I will help you if I can." And then Rabbit and his squirrels went away. The boy brought the girl back to the chief's home. The people all wondered greatly to see her alive. The chief said to the boy, "You may have her as your wife." So they were married, and a great wedding feast was held. But two young men of the girl's village were very angry because the girl had married a stranger. Each wanted her for himself, so they decided to kill her husband. They asked him to go fishing with them far out to sea. The next day, the boy went with them to the deep sea fishing place. It was a long sail. When they were almost out of sight of land, the boy's enemies threw him overboard. Before he could defend himself, and they sailed away, leaving him behind struggling in the water. The boy called for help. Not far away was a small island, and from the beach came a large white seagull in answer to his cries. When Seagull saw his plight, he said, "Have no fear, old friend. I will help you." Seagull flew away, and the boy lay on his back and floated with the tide. Soon Seagull came back carrying a long cord. He let down one end of it and told the boy to hold on to it tight. Then he said, "It is a long swim to the island, but I will tow you there." And Seagull towed him to the island and left them there, saying, "I am very tired after such a long pull. I can go no farther. Goodbye, old friend. Others will help you." As the boy sat shivering on the island beach, Fox came along. "Hello, friend," said Fox. "What are you doing here?" The boy told him what had happened and said, "I'm very hungry." Fox said, "I have no food for you, but I can help you in another way." Then Fox picked a blade of grass from the bank and said, "Eat it." The boy ate it, and at once he was changed into a horse and ate grass until he was full and his hunger had left him. When Fox saw that he was full, he gave him another blade of grass and said, "Eat it." He ate it, and at once he was changed back to a boy. Then Fox said, "When night comes, I will take you home, for there is no boat on this island." So they waited for the evening. When night came and the moon came out, they went to the water's edge. They could see the lights of the village far away across the sea. "Catch hold of my tail," said Fox, "and hang on tight." The boy caught Fox's tail, and Fox swam away, towing the boy behind him. The sea was very rough, and the waves ran high, and the boy thought he would never reach the land. But he held on tight, and after some hours, they came to the shore. Fox said, "Goodbye, old friend. I must go no further. But if you ever again in trouble, call me and I will help you." Then Fox ran away along the beach. The boy made a fire and dried his clothes and then went to the village. The people all wondered greatly to see him alive. They thought that he was dead. They said, "Tomorrow, one of the men who took you fishing is to marry your wife. He told her you had drowned yourself because you were sorry you had married her. Then he asked her to be his wife and she consented." The boy went to his old home and there found his wife. She was very frightened when she saw him, for she thought he had come back from the land of the dead. He told her of the treachery of the two men. She wept, but he said, "Do not weep, but rejoice, for I shall punish the two men tomorrow. There will be no wedding feast for them as they expected." So the next morning, the boy went to the chief, his father-in-law, and told him what had happened. The chief said, "Put the two men to death." But the boy said, "No, I have a better form of punishment." Then he called Fox. When Fox came, he said to him, "Bring me 2 blades of grass that can change men into beasts, such as you used to change me yesterday." Fox ran away and soon came back with the grass. The boy took the 2 blades and went to the men who had tried to drown him. And he said, "Here is some sweet grass I have found under the sea. Taste it." And each took a blade and ate it. At once they were changed. One became a pig, and the other became a porcupine. And both had coarse hair or bristles all over them. And they had noses of a strange and funny shape. The boy's punishment of his enemies was then complete. He said, "Live now despised by men, with your nose always to the ground." So the first pig and the first porcupine appeared upon the earth. The end. And next week's story will be The Sparrow's Search for Rain. Now, that was a pretty good story, wasn't it? All things considered.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't any head chopping or nothing, you know. Don't eat the grass.
Don't eat the grass.
Don't eat the grass, you know. But anyway.
I like it. I like it. It's always interesting. You got the good stories, you know. That's the thing, you know. Anyway.
And it's like the chief, you know, he was like, "Put him to death." And he was like, "No, I got a better idea," you know. And so he didn't ask for 4 blades of grass. He only asked for 2. Because he knew once they changed, that was going to be that. So now the only thing part of the story, shame on me, this is I'm shuffling, okay, and having a chat. So, but the only part of the story is I'm listening. I'm like, well, wait a minute. How did he choose a pig? And did he choose porcupine, or was it just by happen chance when they ate the blades of grass that's what they changed into? So, you know, now I want to know more about the story. How did he do it?
There's random chance, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, well, Fox gave him the well, that was a good shuffle. Fox gave him the blades of grass. So it had to have been Fox that had the magic to give to the boy. Just
Yep.
saying.
Yep.
So depending on what Fox's magic was at the time.
See, that's what makes the stories interesting. I can imagine being back in the day and being told those stories, and you're sitting there around the campfire going, oh man, so what happened? And then you got to use your imagination. It's kind of like we were talking about the other day about thinking about things. And, that's what next week's show, Saturday's show, is going to be about, is, using your imagination to create and manifest things, is because, you're throwing that information out to the universe, and it's all in your mind. You create whatever you want, and
it's
so
planning your future.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways, it's literally planning your future, Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it's a perspective. Remember when we were talking about perspective, everybody could listen to that story, and each one of us is going to have a different kind of an interpretation of it. It's going to be, they're going to all be similar, but there's always going to be that little part that somebody caught and somebody else didn't. Somebody said, oh yeah, I remember, with Fox, and somebody's going to say, yeah, I remember the boy, and I remember the blades of grass, or the chief, and well, they were going to get killed, blah, 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 And so,
what about the giant,
Yeah, exactly. And then somebody's going to say, wasn't there any head chopping?
Where was the killing,
Yeah, exactly. But you see what I'm saying is each one of us would have their own idea of the story and what it meant, and that's the beauty of it. We all have different perspectives. Okay, everybody, get your guesses in for what the cards are going to be, and
or what they already are.
What they already are. Hey, put them in the chat. Come on, I want to see some here. Everybody's really quiet tonight, so participate. Come on, put your chances in. Oh yeah, there's Chloe. She says, card pick animals I've seen the last 24 hours: frog, deer, hawk, hummingbird, and dragonfly. Good guess. I like it. That's a good one. Yeah,
you got two of them.
I think there's turmoil coming, and so I am going to say mountain lion for mine. I'm going to say we need some wisdom. I'm saying turkey, and a hummingbird for peace, and we're going to go with yes, you got to be calm and quiet. We're going to go with deer. There you go. I'm all over the board. Lucky says fox, possum, butterfly, salmon, turtle. Nope, there is no salmon. Sorry. There's turtle.
No fish, actually.
There is a fish?
No, there is no fish. Only the whale. Well, and the dolphin.
Only the whale and dolphin. Okay. John Price says
they're not really fish.
Rabbit, owl, and rat. There is no rat. There's an owl, there's a rabbit, there's a pig.
Well, there's mouse,
there's no pig. There's no pig. So
well, we do have rabbit. Okay, yes. So here are the cards chosen before you all started chosen. We have possum right side up. We have dragonfly right side up. We have frog. I think we had frog last week, and frog's down because frog is cleansing. We have rabbit, so whoever had rabbit, we got him facing down. We got armadillo. Didn't we have armadillo last week?
Yes.
I thought. And to bring up the rear of all things is swan. So it's going to be interesting. Interesting to
Possum.
see how these cards come out.
Okay, say them again. Possum.
Dragonfly, frog, rabbit,
Okay. Okay, I got them.
armadillo, and swan.
Okay, got them.
Okay,
I just got to type them in here, and it's like, oh, I went a little too fast.
that's
And
all right.
my fingers screwed up as I'm going. We've had dragonfly quite a bit. There's got to be something with the dragonfly that's trying to tell us something. Because it seems like dragonfly has been in the cards quite often. What's up with that? And we haven't had an armadillo in
And
quite a
sometimes
while.
upside down, you know. And so this time it's right side up. So
and we've
also
had
the
a
different
swan.
position.
I think we had swan last week too. We've had swan too. Swan
and swan is about grace.
We've been having.
So being grateful for what we have and accepting what the Creator, the road and everything. So that's the fact that we're getting that message again. That's interesting.
I think we had
possum.
I love
swan, but that's just interesting. So here we go with possum, and possum is we had that one last week too, didn't we?
We did.
That ain't the word. Diversion. It is. I got it right. Holy crap! I'm doing this so much. I'm remembering. Yeah, possum is diversion, and so we know that possum can basically roll up in a ball and fool my dog every time by playing dead. And so possum medicine uses a great deal of strategy. If all else fails, and they'll try to get away. It's not like they just fall over, but they'll try to get away and he'll catch up with them. And that's when they play dead. Possum plays dead. It has the ability to fight with its claws and teeth, but it rarely uses them. If possum is turned up in your cards, you are being asked to use strategy in some way. So the message right in here is strategy. Okie dokie, let's remember that part. Rely upon your instincts for the best way out of a tight situation. Now, last week we sort of talked about, with thinking that, that positive thought could get you out of a situation, and rather than just give up. So, let's see. Oftentimes, if you refuse to struggle or show that hurtful words don't bother you, the person's trying to taunt you would just give up. And that's true. Possum may be relaying to you that you are to expect the unexpected. Okay. Okay, so you're asked to be using strategy, and now for something that may be unexpected, and you should be clever in figuring out the situation, which will result in a victory. This could be a victory over a bothersome salesman or a nosy neighbor. So, use your instinct and be expecting the unexpected. Dragonfly number 27. Okie doke. I should know this one too. Dragonfly is about illusion. So we know the dragonfly, in the olden times, the stories go that dragonfly were actually dragons, and they who came along and tricked him? Oh, it was Coyote that came along and tricked him and said, "Hey, you say you're so good at magic. Show me how to turn into a dragonfly. And he did. And when he did, he couldn't change back. So that is sort of the backstory of dragonfly. So dragonfly is the essence of the winds of change. Okay, guess what? Possum just said, be ready for some unexpected things. So these two are tying together. So um, winds of change, the messages of wisdom and enlightenment, and the communications from the elemental world. So there, Robert, you asked about what's Dragonfly doing in our cards again, because Dragonfly is telling us to be, to pay attention to the elemental world. Okie doke. So this elemental world is made up of the tiny spirits of the plants and of the elements air, earth, fire, and water. In essence, this world is full of nature spirits, and most of us know that. If Dragonfly has flown into your cards today, you may have forgotten to water your plants. On another level, you may need to give thanks for the foods you eat for satisfying your body. On the psychological level, it may be time to break down the illusions you have held that restrict your actions or your ideas. So in that, I will say that some folks have an idea and it's like, nah, it'll never work. Well, I can't get the money, and or whatever it is that some folks will just give up on. And we have to give thanks for what we have, and sometimes the answer comes to us. Um, So, dragonfly medicine always beckons you to seek out the parts of your habits which you need to change for the better. So, expect a change from possum, and dragonfly is, telling you that enlightenment and the communications for the elemental world. So, and dragonfly and possum come up again. So, there's something there, because I don't look at the cards and I shuffled them good tonight. So, as I always do. But so, frog is about cleansing, and frog's upside down. So, he must be really dirty. But most of the time, frog talks about, going to a different pond, different, hopping to another lily pad to get a different, sense of what's around. So, uh, frog medicine is akin to water energy and is on the east in the medicine wheel. Frog teaches us to honor our tears, for they cleanse the soul. All water rites belong to frog, including all initiations by water. Water prepares and cleanses the body for sacred ceremonies, or to wash your hands before you eat. It is the element we understand best in the womb. Frog, like ourselves, is a polywog in the fetal waters. An ability of frog medicine people to give support, and turn the page, and energy to where it is needed. Frog medicine person can clean negativity from any environment if they choose. But now frog's in the negative situation. Frog slipped in the mud and is lying on his back, unable to right himself. Get ready for more mud in your eyes. Well, so possum saying, unexpected. Contrary position of frog can denote an unwillingness on your part to wipe away the mire out of your life. What do dragonflies say? You got to look at other things, right? So, and here's frog. You might need to get rid of some stuff out of your life. Mud can turn from mire to bog to quicksand if you don't recognize your surroundings and the effect it might have on you and others. So, is someone draining your energy? Are you allowing yourself to ride down the tubes with somebody else's problem? Don't, nix on that. Have you tried to settle someone else's argument and gotten in the middle of something you shouldn't have? Well, at times, all of life's activities can be overwhelming, and everyone occasionally needs a break. Contrary frog can signal one of those moments. So when these first two cards might overwhelm you for what that thing is coming, might need to take a break. Negativity is drawn to you when you refuse to give yourself the time and space needed to assume another viewpoint. In other words, you're mad, you're this and that, go outside, get out of this house so your energy will expound around you. But then, it'll, oh, look, there's a squirrel on the tree. Your viewpoint just changed. So that's the idea. So go somewhere to change your viewpoint and quit being pissed. Quit being PO'd. All right, the next one up is rabbit. And rabbit, pretty sure, is fear. 30. Oh, I was wrong page. It is. It's fear. And rabbit's upside down. So the short of the story is, Rabbit had a good friend that was a witch. And they were good friends. And then one day the witch took a rock and turned it into a turnip and gave it to Rabbit to eat. And then a little further down, Rabbit was thirsty, and the witch, did the thing and took a plant and turned it into some water. And Rabbit drank it. And then that was that. Rabbit wouldn't go near that person again. And so the sorcerer's witch went to the rabbit and said, why didn't you come back, and why aren't we friends? And he said, because I'm afraid of you. So the witch cursed Rabbit and said, you and all of your offspring from now on will live in fear. You will go out into the field and say, eagle, here I am, come eat me. Hawk, here I am, come eat me. And so Rabbit was cursed because, he gave up on his friend, actually. Now, Rabbit is the fear caller. He goes out and shouts, eagle, I am so afraid of you. And if eagle doesn't hear him, Rabbit says, eagle, stay away from me. Eagle, now hearing Rabbit, goes and eats him. Now, upside down, paralyzed feeling which Rabbit experiences when being stalked is Rabbit in the contrary position. Think about it. Paralyzed feeling. So if if I drive down the driveway and a rabbit might jump out, he won't move. He's like a deer in the headlight. He's a rabbit in the headlights, and they won't move, And so this is what they're saying. The paralyzed feeling which Rabbit experiences when being stalked. If you have tried to resolve a situation in your life and are unable to do so, you may be feeling frozen in motion. So now with this, I can kind of see where Rabbit is in this, in that here's a possum telling you to get ready, and there's something unexpected coming. Frog saying, be clear and wipe the mud out of your eyes. And now Rabbit is sitting here telling you, that you are going to act like a deer in the headlight. And here's the reason, because this could indicate a time to wait for the forces of the universe to start moving again. Sometimes you just need to stand on the sideline and let it happen. Be like the scout and go up on the hill and watch the battle. Um, so simply put, you cannot have your influence felt until you rearrange your way of seeing your present set of circumstances. There is always a way out of any situation because the universal force does move on. It is the way in which you handle problems that allow you to succeed. I got to read that part again. There is always a way out of any situation. Believe it. You might not see it now, but in 10 minutes you might, honestly, because the universal force does move on. It is this in this way which you handle problems that allow you to succeed. Sometimes it's just taking a pause. If you buy stock too quick, you go, man, I better buy this. Then you go, and your gut tells you, man, wait till in the morning. And then you wait till in the morning and the stock drops 20 points and you go, now I'll buy it. So, but anyway, so take a hint from Rabbit, burrow into a safe space, and make sure that you nurture yourself while you're there. Now, the next one is Armadillo, and it's number 28. Boy, all these are like right here together, which is also interesting. Armadillo is about boundaries. So you got a fear coming in, something unexpected, right? And you're not sure what it is. Frog's saying, make sure you got the mud out of your eyes. And Rabbit's like, take care of your fear kind of thing. And wait, and what was my other link to that? Hang on. Oh, it might be the rabbits. You see what's going on. You wipe the mud out of your eyes, but you might need to just stand still for a minute to see what's going on. Watch for the traffic. And here's Armadillo showing up about boundaries. So Armadillo is all about boundaries. If it's under attack, it will roll up into a ball and stay there until whoever it is leaves them alone. So if Armadillo was waddled into your cards, it is time to define your space. So whatever's coming up, Armadillo is telling you to define your space, define your boundaries. I will do this or I won't do this. Or you can come in the house or not. You can get in my car or not. You can run along beside it. So you may have been too willing to let your home become a bus station. Don't do that. It may be time to ask yourself the following question. Am I honoring the time I need for my personal enjoyment? Because if you don't have time, to make yourself laugh or to have a little bit of good time, life sucks. Number 2, do others treat you like a doormat? Well, shake them off and tell them to get out. Number 3, why do I always get upset when I'm taken for granted? So quit doing stuff for people altogether. Tell them to, take a hike. Go hire somebody. Well, we need to use your truck. Sorry, I got a broken axle. So define your boundaries. Whatever's coming up, define your boundaries. Now, Swan is number 39, and it is about grace. And to me, 39. To me, the Swan story, and I'll tell a little bit more of it since it has been pulled straight up tonight. Little Swan flew through the dream time, looking for the future. Now, here's cards that are laying it out. They're even saying, be aware of something coming up, which means the future. So here's Swan flying through the dream time, looking for the future. She rested for a moment in the coolness of the pond, looking for a way to find the entry point to the future. So she's floating around going, how can I get there? There was a moment of confusion for the Swan as she knew that she had happened into the dream time by accident. In other words, she flew to a pond she wasn't aware of, and it happened to be dream time. This was her first flight alone, and she was a bit concerned by the dreamtime landscape. As Swan looked high above Sacred Mountain, she saw the biggest swirling black hole that she had ever seen. Now, I just want to interject here. How many black holes did she see? But anyway, Dragonfly came flying by, and Swan stopped him to ask about the black hole. Dragonfly said, Swan, that is the doorway to the other places of imagination. I have been the guardian of the illusion for many, many, many moons. If you want to enter there, you would have to ask permission and earn the right to go. Swan was not too sure that she wanted to enter the black hole, so she asked Dragonfly what was necessary for her to earn entry. Dragonfly replied, you must be, this is the important part, you must be willing to accept whatever the future holds for you. I lost my place. As it's presented, without trying to change everything that's the Great Spirit's plan. Swan looked at her ugly little duckling body and then answered, I will be happy to abide by the Great Spirit's plan. I won't fight the currents of the black hole. I will surrender to the flow of the energy and of the spiral and trust what I am being shown. Dragonfly was very happy with Swan's answer and began to spin the magic to break the pond's illusion. Suddenly, Swan was engulfed by a whirlpool in the center of the pond. Many days later, Swan reappeared, but now a beautiful, beautiful swan. Swan said, what happened? Dragonfly said, I learned to surrender my body to the Great Spirit and was taken to where the future lives. I saw many wonders high on Sacred Mount, and because of my faith and my acceptance, I have been changed. I have learned to accept the state of grace. Swan told Dragonfly many of the wonders beyond the illusion. Through her healing and her acceptance of the state of grace, she was given the right to enter the dream time. If you pulled Swan, it ushers in a time of altered states of awareness and of development of your intuition and your intuitive abilities. Swan medicine people have the ability to see the future, to surrender to the power of the Great Spirit, and to accept the healing and transformation of their lives. I'm always talking about accept and believe and to have faith. And here's Swan saying the same thing. Now, at first, I didn't think Swan had anything to do with this, but Swan ties up the cards. I mean, it's like Swan ties up these cards. Wow, what a spread. Whew. Every time they come up with stuff that just surprised me to death. So, you know, in this, that, you know, there's a lot of stuff coming our way in the future. We can't deny that. And each of us is going to have to face it in your own way. But, you know, we got to set our own boundaries. That's like a logical thing to say. And if we've got mud in our eyes, wipe it out. And sometimes, you know, we can get caught up in the mud of a family, you know, argument or something. And so mud represents a bunch of stuff in our lives. And so we need to make sure we don't get stuck. And Rabbit is saying you might get stuck and be frozen. But in that frozen state, you might need to just wait a minute, wipe the mud out, but keep standing where you're at, because you might need to watch the parade before you try to pull out your card. You know, I mean, sometimes you just got to wait. And Rabbit's telling you, and it's not like you got to wait forever. You just got to wait a little bit before Rabbit runs off. And then here's, you know, Swan. Wow. You know, through healing and her acceptance of the state of grace, she was given the right to enter the dream time. You know, so there's so much learning going on now, and people, and we're getting all these energies out of the middle of the, you know, the galaxy and stuff, and other places. I mean, you can't hide from it, you know, so we all feel a change. And so we should accept it with grace. If we fight these energies and, well, no, I don't want to change, I don't want to, calm down. You better just sit like a rabbit and just calm down. But with the grace of the Creator and the Swan card, you know, you'll be better on the other side, promise. Because you see, the idea is that with the grace of Swan, she went into the dream time. But the dream time, the landscape was different, meaning that she had learned so much and everything was brighter. You know, she could hear the crickets. I mean, there were things that, you know, so she advanced in her understanding. And so, you know, in a lot of ways. And so she was transformed. But in that transformation, there was all these other things. So don't give up on the Creator. Continue to have faith. And as a wrap up, I will continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe, because the cards keep warning us. So keep up the good work, everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good cards tonight. The cards keep repeating. I'm just thinking these are the times that we're in. So pay attention, people. Pay attention. Big question. You got a show tonight?
Maybe. If I can get the cell phone to work, you know.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. So thank you everybody for coming. There's Witchy Moon. She says, I'm late, just got the grandkids down. Oh, well, you'll have to rewatch because we're signing out and moving on, and catch David in a little bit. He'll be doing a show. I know. Get a cup of coffee, get the cell phone working. You'll be good.
Yeah, I got to go get some coffee. Yep.
But thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Tomorrow, we'll be talking more about Mountain Men next week. And David, you'll be joining me for Saturday night show.
Yeah, and as we had planned, and we're going to be talking about, you know, following your gut. And guess what? Following your instincts. Man, is all this stuff like in the last 2 weeks or so, even the cards are telling us, you know, learn how to follow your instincts, learn how to develop your instincts, learn how to, you know, like, you know, to be able to go into the future, you got to be able to trust the, you know, holy mackerel. This is what we've been talking about on the side.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't you? I mean, right now, as I'm talking about it, this is kind of weird that all these cards and things are keep kind of coming in together and tying themselves up.
Mm-hmm. Not by coincidence.
Somebody's trying to tell us something.
That's how they do it. That's how they do it. Well, thank you, everyone. Join us again Saturday night, and we'll find out more. So with that, tune in. Go do something nice for your neighbor. Remember, hey, summer's coming. Grow a garden. Get your thumb green. Being connected with the earth is really important. It's good grounding anyway. When you can put a seed in the ground and it sprouts into a plant and it grows into a fruit that you can eat and nourish your body, it's like anything else. It's rewarding for you and the environment, the universe. You could share it with your neighbors. It's better than anything else out there, because most of the important thing is to be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.